in this step, we're going to take our drumsticks and we're going to use them a different way on the drums that can enhance your music and make things a little more creative. We're going to play what is called side stick on the snare drum, which is normally it's played during a drum beat. And what you do, the most common way is to just take your stick, okay, flip it upside down to where you're going to actually play with the butt end of the stick. Now, instead of playing the drum, you're going to put your palm of your hand pretty much right in the middle of the drum, as you can see, okay? And I actually have the bead of the stick is on the actual drum head, and it does not move, okay? So it doesn't lift up off the head. It stays there, and all you do is you want to put the thickest part of the stick over like a lug, okay? Okay, and that gives you a really killer knocking sound. Now what happens if you put it over here in between two lugs, you might not be able to tell, but it's a little bit thinner. Typically, if you play it over a lug, it's going to give you a real nice thick sound. And the same thing if you play further up, it gives you a different type of sound, which to me doesn't sound as good as this. Okay, so it sounds something like this if you're playing a beat. Now, that's all good and fine, but there's times where you need to get back to where you're playing the drums regular, where you're not playing with the butt end of the stick, because it does feel a little bit different if you're playing the drum set. One hand is normal, meaning the butt of the stick is in your palm of your hand, where in this hand you have the bead is in the palm of my hand. It can feel strange and different and can throw you off. And if you're going to do like 16th notes on the snare drum, it doesn't sound the same. So you can also play side stick just normal, where you're just holding your stick normal, but the same concept. The butt end of the stick stays on the drum head. You never lift up, and you just lift up. Now the problem with this, there's benefits and there's disadvantages. The benefit is, well, let's start with the disadvantage. The disadvantage is, you can tell, not quite as good of a sound as when you use the butt end. Just that's such a nice thick sound with the butt end, and this sound, it's just thinner. Now, the benefit of doing it this way is when you're playing your beat, and you got to get back to playing the snare drum, and you want to play with the beat of the stick, you're right there, okay? So here we go. Okay, so I'm right there with it. You're playing the butt end, unless you want to play with the butt end, but if you want to play with the other side, then you're talking about you got to flip the stick. And it's just not as smooth. It can be harder. If you got a lot of time where you don't necessarily have to get back to the snare drum real quick, use the fat end of the stick for the side stick. If it's a real quick thing, just go ahead and use this. And particularly in live sound, you're not going to be able to tell that much of a difference anyway. But in the studio, you definitely can tell a difference.